Chairman Goodwin, the public is in.
Okay. Am I clear to call the meeting to order?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the April 21st, 2021 meeting of the City of Grosse Pointe Park Planning Commission meeting to order. I'd like to start off with a roll call, starting with Amy Chesterton.
Present.
Patrick Coletta.
Here.
Michelle.
Here.
Lindsay.
Present.
Thank you. Catherine Samper.
Here.
Michael Fataki.
Here.
Michelle Hodges.
Here.
Mayor Bob Dinner.
My apologies, Chairman Goodwin. Mayor Denner actually stepped down from the Planning Commission
Oh,
when the new
okay.
ordinance was passed. So I need to send you a new roster. I will do so tomorrow.
Okay, all right, thank you for the clarification. Nick Seisler
Here.
and we have City Attorney Howlett here, correct?
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. Next, I would like to ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 9th.
So moved. Motion. Oh, both Michelle's at the same time. Go ahead, other Michelle. I'll second it. Okay. I make the motion to approve the meeting minutes from February.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Lindsay and seconded by Member Hodges. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, next I'd like to move on to new business. And City Manager Seislin, would you like to open up the item related to the master plan update? Oh, we have, yes, Commissioner Hodges.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we have public comment prior to new business.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. So let me back up. Next on the agenda would be public comment. And I'd like to turn that over to the administration.
Thank you, Chairman Goodwin. So Planning Commission members, I have 2 written public comments that I'll be reading off for you tonight. Then I'll have Leah do the spoken public comment. This public comment comes from Wendy Raylan. The proposal for new development multifamily housing at Weyburn is commendable and much needed in our community. In the past 10-20 years, there have been far too many multifamily homes demolished to create parking lots. However, there are a couple issues of concern. Front garages facing the street, restore the alley between Alter and Weyburn. The plans could be flipped with garages in the rear. Reopening the alley could also help with current resident parking issues. Emergency and trash recycling access due to dead-end street. The proposed site plan still does not show the overall context, including relationship to adjacent Huntington Bank and the proposed DPW. Will there be a gate at the dead end to allow emergency vehicles, city trucks, plows, and trash trucks? Development states this is a 2-story building, but the renderings show a 3-story building. There are a few other inconsistencies. The 40,000 square foot lot requirement and location on County Road are both confusing and suggest this development would not comply. Perhaps the building official can explain. The retention pond open drainage ditch is owned by the city of GPP adjacent to the bank, and this development needs maintenance and clearing. Grates are displaced and the entire ditch is filled with trash. That said, this development could be a wonderful addition to the community. If these issues can be addressed, a meeting with the neighbors would be advisable to hear the concerns, particularly about parking and design characteristics. This comment comes from Mr. Greg Donnelly. I want to first express my general support for the kind of dense and urban infill development that is proposed as 4 residential units at 1475 through 1481 Weyburn. The west end of Grosse Pointe Park is already quite dense and walkable, and is encouraging to see development that is not overly suburban being proposed. That being said, that particular street does have an alley, and many of the current homes on the street access their garages from the alley. This development proposes 4 new driveways in a relatively short distance, all to garages that are at the front of the homes instead of behind homes, as is more in keeping with the neighborhood's character. Should this developer be encouraged to have the garages accessed from the alley and or behind the new homes? Wouldn't new homes in this neighborhood be made better with generous porches out front, where the new residents can say hello to their new neighbors from instead of driveways and garages? Commissioner Goodwin, those are my written public comments, and I'll ask Leah now if there's any spoken public comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Sorry, I was muted. So as I was saying, I have 2 people in the queue right now, so I'm going to share the 3-minute timer.
Excuse me, I don't have a raise hand function. Can someone tell me how to do that?
Yes, so there should be a raise hand function under the participant list or on the bottom of your screen if you're utilizing the app. If you're calling in on a touchtone phone, you can also press *9 and that should raise your hand on your phone. So I'm going to go ahead and share the timer. And the first person in the queue is Brian. So I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
My name is Brian Vosberg, and I live in Grosse Pointe Park. And I was commenting on the master plan agenda item. I had 2 comments / questions. The first one is I was curious what happened to the request for volunteers for the master plan. I had sent an email volunteering for the master plan process the first night of the master plan meeting. And it's been 2.5 months now, and I haven't received a response back for it. So I'm just curious what the status of that is, or is that program not going to happen? The second question I had, or comment I had rather, was that 13 residents on my block, myself included, sent a petition to the planning commissioners by email regarding the proposed demolition by the Tifa board of 1166 Maryland. The city had previously committed to completing a parking study before proposing any more demolitions to expand parking lots. At a recent city public meeting, City Manager Seisland said that he had received parking study proposals from MKSK for that. And so I was wondering if the Planning Commission was going to be taking action on that proposal tonight, and also taking a position that there should not be any more demolitions of homes until a proper planning or parking study is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person in the queue is Robert. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And please state your full name and city of residency. Please go ahead.
My full name is Robert Klaza. I've lived in Grosse Pointe Park for 45 years. And my comment is regarding the 4-family development on Weyburn. And I feel that the design of that structure is entirely not in keeping with the residential community of the area and of Grosse Pointe Park in general. Now, granted, it is a post-modern design with slanted roofs, but how many other houses on Weyburn are like that? None. So I am not in favor of that 4-family development as it is conceived by the architect. If it was more conventional and more like the brownstones on Lake Point, it would be more in keeping with the residential community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next person in the queue is Amy. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Amy Reno, and I have been a resident of Grosse Pointe Park for almost 40 years now. My husband and I have owned our home here at 1463 since 1997. Myself and my husband, along with 8 other neighbors, all of them have been on this particular block for over 10 years, wrote a letter that didn't make it in time to be read. We addressed to the planning committee. The residents of the 1400 block of Weyburn have some serious concerns with the proposed condos that are planned for 1475 to 81 Weyburn. On our block, most of the residents own their homes and or are longtime renters. Our block is unique in that we each know each other and become friends. We often socialize and watch out for each other. We discuss changes as they are proposed. The Weyburn condo development has created a great deal of discussion among us. We all agree that adding new homes to the area would be a great idea. This block is all about community. Sadly, these proposed plans do not give the feeling of community to any of us on this block. These plans do not represent what we are all about. The residents on our block are extremely concerned about the parking issue that is about to take place. Parking for the residents of the Cabbage Patch has always been an issue, and our block has been fortunate that we had the lot at the end of Weyburn and Mac to use when there was a lack of street parking. We all use that lot at Weyburn and Mac, and there's simply not enough parking for all the residents on the street. Most families have 3 or more cars each, our home in particular 5. Once the DPW yard is built, that lot will be gone, and there will be no longer parking to support the residents that are already here. The cross street at Gothey is utilized by the residents as well. We are concerned about the population density of this particular block with the 4 units that are planned. And we're very concerned with the fact that this home or these 4 homes do not match any of the surrounding area at all. It doesn't bring community and it doesn't bring a sense of value in neighborhood. We have looked at the DPW lot plans as well as these, and they overlap each other, which also draws a concern. With the removal of the turnaround at the end of our street, we have a special needs bus that comes down our street every day, a full-size bus, and parking that will not be able to turn around without utilizing some residents' driveway or garbage trucks or emergency vehicles. So we are extremely concerned for the development's plan, the size of it, as well as the placement in reference to the DPW yard. The aesthetic just is not pleasing to any residents. And with 9 of us here that have been here for as long as we have, we hope that the council will take, or the planning commission will take that into consideration.
Thank you. Chairman Goodwin, I have no further public comment at this time.
Okay. I don't want to be overzealous this time. I'd like to now move to new business and turn it over to City Manager Seisland to introduce the next agenda item, which is the master plan update.
Yes, Chairman Goodwin. I'll make one quick note. Amy, thank you for reading your letter. It did not come in on time. However, I did share it with the Planning Commission as well before this meeting. So just wanted to let you know and thank you for talking. So before us tonight, I do have Anne Marie Kirby, who is from MKSK, who is helping us right now in our master plan process. And so I will turn it over to Anne Marie Kirby to provide us a little update on where we're at right now.
Hi everyone, good evening. Leah, could you allow me to share my screen? I just have a few slides I wanted to share.
Yes, yes, give me 1 second. Okay, now you should be able to try again, Anne Marie.
Okay, so let me just minimize my screens here. So we last met in February for the community visioning session where we had about 150 participants join to learn more about the master plan update, ask questions and give their input on priorities. We then launched an online survey, which was open for about a month. We also created a condensed paper survey for the request of the city to accompany that online version. We got about 12 paper survey responses. So most of the responses were from online, and we had over 1,000 survey responses. I will say your response rate on the survey was really great. Almost 10% of your population took the survey. So usually we're happy if we see like a 5% return rate on surveys. So this is a really great sample size of your community. And then we also received almost 250 comments from the interactive map on the project website. And we've been analyzing all of these to summarize the input and looking for trending priorities. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of a sample of the feedback that we've gotten so far. This is the summary of the results. These will be part of the community open house that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, as well as included on the final plan document. So most respondents were residents. About 95% of the respondents were residents, and then close to half of the respondents were located in Area 2 that you see on the map between Mac, Kirchville, Somerset, and Cadue. We asked about why people choose to live or work in Grosse Pointe Park, and these were the top answers. School system, community amenities, walkability, property values, proximity to Detroit, and proximity to Lake St. Clair. And then we also asked people about, what their top 5 priorities were for improvements in Grosse Pointe Park. Parks and recreation, sidewalk repairs and maintenance, underground infrastructure, stormwater management, and early childhood care and services. And then there was also a fill-in option on the survey for people to note additional things that they would like to see improved in Grosse Pointe Park. This is a word count, so it shows the trending answers that popped up. So the larger the word that you see, the more times that it was mentioned. So improved business districts, updates to the marina, better communication and diversity. These were all things that we saw pop up numerous times, among other things that you see listed there. We also asked about top priorities for each of the business districts. So for Mack Avenue, developing vacant properties was an overwhelming response. Almost 45% of those who took the survey said that that was the top priority for Mack Avenue, with enhancing the streetscape and upgrading building facades as secondary priorities. And then for Mack and Cadue, enhancing the streetscape, improving public parking, and developing vacant properties were all pretty close as priorities. And then for Charlevoix, developing vacant properties, enhancing the streetscape were top priorities, as well as upgrading building facades. And Jefferson had the same answers. And then for Kirchville, improve public parking and adding bike facilities were top choices. However, there was a quarter of the survey takers said that there were no improvements needed along Kirchville. So it seems to be a focus of improvements for the other business districts and areas with lighter upgrades and improvements to Kirchville. And we asked about priority improvements in the parks as well. And upgrades to the marina was a top priority for Windmill Point Park, and then upgrading the kayak and canoe launch for Patterson Park. So that's just a summary of the input that we've received so far. And like I said, it'll also be, the rest of that will be at the open house meeting. And just to let you know kind of what we went through with this process, we originally planned to do virtual office hours, but the decision was made to switch to a safe in-person event to help facilitate more quality discussions and give opportunities for feedback. So we had planned that for next week, April 27th, but due to the COVID surge in Michigan, we decided to delay that event. So the new date for that open house is Tuesday, May 25th at Windmill Point Park. So we have same times and everything, but that's tentatively scheduled for then. But that's what we're planning on. And it's going to be at the Tompkins Community Center patio. If the weather isn't great, we'll shift inside to that same building. And I've included the website on here too, so you can see updates on that date. And the city will also, send out notification too. So the goal for this event is to basically just have like stations set up, and we'll have facilitators at each station to talk about and help facilitate discussion for those priority topics, and people can continue to give feedback and ask questions. And we'll be sure to practice social distancing and require masks at the event to help keep it safe. And then for next steps, after the public open house, we'll be combining the results of that with the rest of the input that we've received, and then move on to developing the recommendations for the plan. And then the goal is to come back to you later in the summer with a draft plan and recommendations for your review. And we're thinking that Planning Commission could serve as the host for a public workshop. So it's probably like a special meeting that you would hold. And then we would work with you to present the key aspects of the plan and then facilitate some interactive exercises to get some feedback on priorities. So that's all I have, and I'm happy to help answer questions.
Leah, based on the formatting of my computer, I'm having some difficulty seeing everyone on the commission.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't mind, if you see someone that has a question, please help me facilitate that until I can figure out my viewports here.
You're fine. I don't see anybody with their hand raised.
Okay.
But I would also say too that if you have a question, you can unmute yourself and ask it.
Yes.
I have a question. Just to actually follow up from one of our public comments from Brian Vosberg. There was talk initially about having volunteers within the community to help with this process. Is that still the plan, or have we decided to do something different?
Oh, yeah, I had heard that question. Thanks for bringing that up. So there was at the very beginning when we had interviewed for this process, we had talked about this volunteer program. And then when we did the kickoff meeting with the city, we had discussed that as an option, but also the virtual option too. And it was opted to go with the virtual option at that time because of COVID and not wanting to encourage people to gather in each other's houses. So I think there was just concerns about being safe. And so that's why there was a shift to do more virtual engagement. But we've kind of had to be flexible because now we're kind of switching back to being able to do an open house. So we're trying to do some in-person events, but also trying to make sure everyone's comfortable and safe.
And Marie, this is Amy Chesterton. Just as a follow-up to the question about volunteers, should you find, we've talked before about the fact that this is a complete master plan overhaul, not an update that we know is fairly labor intensive. Should you find the need or see that you're hitting a backstop in terms of capacity, could you certainly make a point to reach back out to the Planning Commission if there are activities, data collection points, anything that you feel that you simply can't proceed with based on fee and proposed scope, reach to us to see if we could facilitate additional resources. And when I say resources, I don't mean money, I mean this wealth of volunteers that we have in the community.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. That's a great point. I think if there what likely will be some sort of opportunity in the future for that volunteer aspect. So I don't want to necessarily say we're not going to do it. It just might look a little different than what we had proposed originally.
Understood.
But certainly, I think there could be opportunities for that. Definitely.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, go ahead, Michelle.
We're on the same wavelength tonight, Michelle. Anne Marie, I just had a question about the timeline as I'm kind of looking through the original flow chart, and I'm just wondering where you guys are in terms of looking at tasks 5 and 6, which would be future land use and focus areas, and then examining multimodal transportation. If you have any data that you've comprised so far in regards to those tasks that could be shared with the Planning Commission at some time in the near future.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, some of these tasks are kind of happening at the same time. We can definitely provide you with that information as we continue to analyze some of those things. We've already done some of the existing conditions work, but now we are shifting more into the recommendations as we're getting input from the surveys, and then all of that is going to be compiled, and then that's when we're going to start drafting those recommendations. So I imagine it would be in the next couple of months, we would have something drafted to provide you for your review.
That's great. And then just one follow-up question with that, as you're looking at multimodal transportation, I know that we're not doing a full parking study within the master plan, and hopefully that's something we'll talk about later in our meeting, but will there be any examination of parking within that task 6?
To some extent, but a more thorough study. We actually submitted a proposal to the city, and we briefly talked with Nick about it. So we're going to be, I think, discussing that with him further. And I know that question came up. So that parking is a whole nother animal. There's a lot that goes into it. I would say most of the parking analysis would have to happen with a different parking study.
Great. Thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Councilmember Hodges.
Thank you, Chairman Goodwin. Just a couple of quick things. One, this process obviously is very important. It's going to guide and direct significant decisions. So it's really important that we get it right. And I'm glad we have the team of professionals led by MKSK at the table, and they've been carefully vetted, and we do have a lot of confidence in you and your team, Ms. Kirby. With that said, I do want to share a concern that I've heard consistently in the community, and that is relative to the survey and the mapping tools. I understand there were few controls over the number of times a person could submit a comment, and not a clear understanding of the geography that they might have hailed from. And that's not to say we don't want to hear from people from outside of the community or stakeholders, but I do think we need to understand who they are. So I just want to be sure the credibility of the data is solid and good, because that is the foundation of the whole, or forms the whole foundation of the process. So I thought perhaps you could speak to that a bit, so that the community has trust in the data set itself.
Sure, I'm happy to answer that question. So I know I had some emails from Nick as well. I know there were a few concerns that I'd heard from the community about this. And one of the things that we had looked at was, I checked pretty much every week, and I downloaded the data and looked at the Excel spreadsheet to see if there were repeats of IP addresses, and if there were, did it look like the responses were changing, or were they very similar? And there were very few repeats, and when we saw repeats, it likely was people from the same household taking the survey. So we set the survey up that way because you do want to make sure that it's open. It's challenging because it is a public process, and I understand the concerns about, people who take it should be living in the community. And that's why I did point out during the presentation, or the slide that I just showed, about 95% of people were residents. Is that 100% accurate? I don't know, but I can assure you that for the most part, there's not going to be random people taking your 30-question survey for Grosse Pointe Park. And there are also concerns, I think, about data bots or robots taking it. And we look for clues on whether or not, like, a robot is taking a survey, and we didn't see any kind of evidence of that. Normally you would see that if there was like kind of strange answers for like open-ended responses. And so we didn't see that across the board. But yeah, we need to keep it open, but we do look for where there might be like repeated answers. And there didn't seem to be any evidence of people submitting, multiple responses from the same person.
Okay, thank you for that additional scrutiny. And then my only other question, Chairman Goodwin, would just be to ask that the administration work closely with KSK, knowing that we're in a budget planning season. We are in the budget planning season, and because this will guide and direct future decisions, if there are any implications from a budget standpoint that we need to consider, now would be the time to get those on the table. So again, not a discussion I would think we'd get into now, but just making sure we're thinking in that vein.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Anne Marie? Okay, hearing none. Thank you, Anne Marie, for your update. And Nick, if there's anything else, then I'll turn it over to you to address the next item.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anne Marie, for joining us. Have a good night. Chairman Goodwin, so before you tonight, we do have a site plan review of a Weyburn 4-unit development that is a 1475-7781 Weyburn by GSR Properties LLC. With me tonight, who will be representing as well from the city, is Mr. Ron Supel, who is our Chief Building Inspector. And with us as well, I know we have Mr. George Bailey, Mr. Dave Bonjero of the development team, and I believe another representative, Mr. Inger, may be joining us later. To provide some context in why we're here today is that the City Council at its April 12th meeting, acting as the Zoning Board of Appeals, had to consider granting a variance for a side setback regarding this site plan. So just for that context, the new 4-unit building did not meet the zoning requirements, Article X, Schedule of Regulations RD, which requires side yard setback at 6 feet on each side. The new building will have a 9-foot setback on one and 0-foot setback on opposite. The 0 setback side borders the rear setback of the Huntington Bank site located at Detroit. The City Council, acting as the Zoning Board of Appeals, granted a variance to the applicant, subject, however, to the Planning Commission review and approval of the proposed site plan. So before you tonight, in my memo, is a review of the City of Grosse Pointe Park Zoning Code Chapter 2733 for the Planning Commission to consider whether applicant has met these requirements in your review of the site plan. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Ron Supel if he has any additional comments real quick before we turn it over to the developer. Mr. Supel.
Hello, everybody. I don't have any real comments. This is going to be a 2-family dwelling on a 2-family lot, and then an additional 2-family dwelling on a second 2-family lot. So basically, it's going to be 4 dwelling units on 2 2-family lots. If there's any questions regarding that situation, I can take those at this time.
City Manager Seislin, so we can do this a couple ways. I mean, I have questions that relate to the section of the zoning that are relevant to this project. But I also have some other questions related more so to the proposal. And I don't want to make this complicated, so perhaps we could just keep moving forward with the introduction of the facts, and then we'll turn it back around for Q&A.
I think that's perfectly fair, Chairman Goodwin.
Chairman Goodwin, just a point of information. Could you, Mr. Supel, could you clarify that's inconsistent with the summary that we received earlier? You're saying it is being presented as two family units?
No, is what it was before, is it was a two-family dwelling on an RD lot. So we had two-family dwellings on 2 lots for a total of 4 units. So the applicant basically wishes to do the same scenario with a single unit building. Now, had he requested additional, like a single unit building with 5 units or 6 units, it wouldn't be considered. But being that the case is, let's say, apples for apples, I think he's fine, consistent with what is planned.
Okay, so Chairman Goodwin, should I hold questions then until the end of the presentation? I think.
I would like to, because I think there's
Okay,
yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Seisland.
Yes, Mr. Bonjero and Mr. Bailey. If you'd like to start.
Hello, yes, I'm here. Hello.
This is George. I'm going to be I'll be running through the presentation. Let's see, Leah, you said I could share my screen, correct?
Yes, that is correct. If you want to go ahead and try, I have the permission. Yep, you look like we're all good. Thank you.
Great. Awesome. Okay. Well, so thank you to the commission for letting us present this evening. We're excited to present this proposed project for a 4-unit townhouse development there at starting at 1475 Weyburn. And we're excited to be part of the neighborhood, pending approval. And so we are a 4-unit townhouse development, approximately 1,385 square feet per unit. As Mr. Supal delineated, we are 4 units, basically replacing the 4 units that existed on these properties previously, obviously in a different format and different form. So the density, to one of the points that was in a comment earlier, is not changing, and we're not overburdening the density there. So we do have, due to just the relationship to the street and the site and the alley behind us, which is unimproved and not accessible, we do have front entry garages. I know that's concerning for some folks, but in order to make this work and provide the required parking for the development, we would need to access from the front. We are trying to be good neighbors. We're utilizing elements and things that are prevalent in the neighborhood via materials with brick and siding, wood elements, things like that, as far as the materials go. And then scalable elements on the building itself, with porches and balconies, windows and door openings that are not overscaled, but to the same scale of the building and to the scale of the neighborhood, just like the homes that are around us. In each of those buildings, each of the homes has elements that are scaled to their building as well. So so obviously the site plan here shows our I guess a lot of the major focus on the comments were regarding the parking elements, which we feel like we're improving the parking situation on the street. We are providing not only garage parking, but a full driveway parking access for each resident, and gets them off of the street and they don't have to park on the street. The access as far as larger vehicles and things like that, we are had some conversations with the architect for the DPW project and the city building official as well regarding this turnaround area here. We're going to make some modifications here to make this a little bit more generous, and so that the larger vehicles can get in and do a turnaround, it's called like a hammerhead turnaround there at the terminus of Weyburn. And then so Each unit has its own backyard area to be determined whether we're going to fence them in or use kind of living screens in between there. Still part of the design process at this point. There were some questions in our last meeting at the ZBA regarding what we look like on this side, on the southern side of the property, and how we are going to kind of either not hide ourselves, but kind of screen elements between us and the adjacent property here, the adjacent house there at 1473. So we're proposing a fence and some dense screens like arborvitaes along that edge to help provide sound attenuation, that kind of thing, and visual screening. What else here? The other part here with our access across and trying to be, again, part of the neighborhood and part of the neighborly process here is, I believe they're going to introduce a sidewalk along this western edge of the DPW property. I don't know if you can see my cursor along here. The western edge of that property, they're going to introduce a public access sidewalk to get to Mack Avenue. So we're going to help with that and try to make our access across here smooth and flat across there to be a part of that connection point there to Mack Avenue. So we can help continue that pedestrian access across there since the vehicular access will be limited. So let's see. And I know there's a lot of concern. This is kind of the overall kind of a zoomed out version of the site. This is the DPW building here, the parking area. That sidewalk I was talking about here is going to be along this western edge to the west side of that fence line that's shown there. This is our property here with our 4 units. We are, with the ZBA approval at the pushed up the furthest north we can go to the property line so that we can give a generous setback to our side on the southern side to our neighbor there. As was mentioned earlier, this is the retention pond here, which there's no impact on a structure of any sort within, I believe the existing structure of the Huntington Bank is about 140, 150 feet away from us on that side. So let's see. All right, so this is our front view, looking from standing kind of near the wall at the DPW complex. Again, we've got 4 units with, we've got, again, the scalable elements. We got balconies and porches, and our elements, our openings are scaled to the building and scaled to the size of the development, I believe. We've got some sloping roofs, some flat roof elements, and just trying to be, a little bit creative, a little bit different. I understand that we don't look exactly like our neighbors, but that's, I think that's okay. In the broader sense, even we're talking about developments. And so these are some other views across across the project. Obviously, it's in a vacuum here. You're not seeing the things across the properties across or adjacent, but we feel like it's within. Again, it's within the elements that were there previously, the density that was already there. We already had 4 units across there, so we're just kind of putting back in a different way. We are super excited to be a part of this neighborhood, be a new, unique part of the neighborhood, which we feel like could be a good thing for all involved, and the 4 new residents that can be part of that community, can be part of those street parties and saying hi to your neighbors from the balconies and from the outside, and walking around and doing all the things that everybody else in the neighborhood does. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to allow Amy to finish her line of questioning.
That sounds so intimidating.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that.
Hi, Mr. Bailey, Amy Chesterton. Thank you very much for coming this evening and presenting to the commission, as well as the public that's here this evening. I think I would like to start by echoing some of the comments that were given in the public comment, that we are really excited about development. I'm quasi in the industry. I understand the incredible pressure that is being put on the cost of building materials, escalation, mobilization, everything at this point. So welcome to our city. I have a series of questions that are probably a little bit directed specifically towards the city, towards City Manager Seisland and Ron Supel, and then I have some specifically directed towards the architect. Commissioner Goodwin, how do you suggest I proceed? Okay.
Go for it.
I think one of the first questions that I have, trying to be as general as possible. Thank you. You have the. I don't believe I can annotate. I'm struggling to understand. And again, Mr. Bailey, this is something that I believe is the city's responsibility. I'm struggling to understand how most municipalities require a 50-foot turning radius at a cul-de-sac at the dead end when a new dead-end street is created for provisions for emergency turning vehicles, buses, trash, etc. So that's something, again, that is something that this commission approved earlier. The city council moved forward with. However, this particular plan does encroach on that limited hammerhead with that second parking island and some of your concrete paved area. So even if the space at the end of the proposed closed off Weyburn were ample amount for turning radiuses, which I'll leave that to Mr. Supel and his department to make that determination. This is conflicting with that. So that's my first comment. How many parking spaces are provided interior? We don't have a floor plan.
There's one space inside, and then a surface parking on the driveway outside.
Okay.
So you have two spaces. You have two spaces per.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Can you tell me a little bit about? You mentioned. Did you do any comparative or site studies in terms of an analysis of the form or the form or the character of the existing homes on the street?
In general, it's simply as a direct answer, no, but it's not that we're ignoring the residential, the single family residential. We're not a single family residence. So the elements are a little bit different. But it doesn't mean that this is a proposed design currently. Doesn't mean that the elements cannot be modified and can't be updated, changed, and be a little bit more accommodating. But that decision is with the developer as well. So
okay,
but,
understood.
It's trying to be as as efficient as well with the forms. Some of the forms of a single family resident wouldn't fit the scale. They would look awkward at the scale of the building. So that was a consideration. So we did try to look at some different sloping roofs and things like that, but the scale of the building kind of made it look awkward, and rather than look awkward, we rather look clean and nice and present a very fresh face to the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. And I see that you did not provide elevations. Can you tell me how high this proposed building is as compared to the adjacent structures?
I didn't have a list of required documents to provide. I asked for those. There was not a list, but I'm sorry.
That's super fair. That's something that we will be able to provide for you in the future.
But just for scaling purposes, this is the highest point of the building here at the top of the roof is at about 34.5 feet, which is just under the 35-foot max height.
And the adjacent structure is how high?
The adjacent structure, I'm not certain. They are probably at the top of their roof, they're probably within about a 20 foot range, maybe something to that effect. But it's a bungalow next to us, I believe. So.
Okay. So I just have, I think I have again, several questions. I have a couple more regarding parking. and then I think I'll yield to the rest of the commission. So you mentioned that there's one space outside and one space inside in terms of achieving the 2 parking spaces per 2-family unit requirement. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So there's one space inside the garage, and then there's the surface parking outside.
Okay. Okay. So I'm concerned about the wall of garages that faces the street. I understand that the public alley that I believe you have on your site plan, again, I believe that has been completely vacated and yielded to the remaining to the residents on the other side. So I'm not sure that's even an alley anymore. We could get some clarification on that. But I do know that since that's happened decades ago, that's no one here on this call. I don't think we have anyone to answer to for that. So I do understand the challenges of providing this dense development that you've described, coupled with the ability to create walkability on the street. However, and as you mentioned, we have very little provisions, and our code is somewhat thin, but we're getting there in terms of requirements. I am very concerned about the wall of garages that faces the street. We have virtually no pedestrian environment in terms of a sidewalk, and when we look at things like these renderings, the isometrics in lieu of the elevations, what we'll ultimately see are all the cars that are in the front as opposed to your beautiful elevations. Our code does have a requirement that no more than 25% of a front yard in any residential district shall be covered by either a driveway or other area devoted to vehicular access, or any material which is substantially impervious to water. And so we don't have much in terms of preserving walkability, but we do have that, which is section 27-84. I understand that these are already 15 feet wide units to begin with, which is a pretty nominal. It's fairly common in urban areas. And I applaud you for trying to figure out ways to squeeze as many units in as possible. Again, I realize the economics of this type of development. And again, we want to try to make sure that this happens. The other issue is that if one parking space is provided in the garage and the other is on the alley, I believe on the driveway, I believe, and I would yield to City Manager Seisland or Mr. Supel in terms of, I do not believe that a parking space is allowed to be accommodated in the front yard. So I can look into that further. So the overall concern is walkability and the garages, in addition to what I see are inconsistencies with our variance, inconsistencies with our ordinance, and I'm unsure why those weren't also directed towards a variance request. Do you have any follow-up questions for me? Again, I have several questions. I know my commission has many more. I think I'll stop there, but I think it's really important, Mr. Bailey, that you understand that we're excited that you're here. I think we just need to, and I think that there is a way to make this happen. I personally believe that we need to do everything we can to preserve the walkability on the street, in addition to some conflict that I see with the turning radiuses at the end of the future Weyburn Street.
Thank you, Amy. I'd like to, Commissioner Bataki.
Yeah, can I just ask a couple other questions as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. Following up on Commissioner Chesterton's question on the height. I know there's a footnote with regard to the height that the 35 foot is the basic requirement. But if the majority of the houses on the block are significantly shorter than that, there's a formula by which the height could be capped at 30 feet. So this being effectively a 3-story building, I guess my question would be, well, well, two questions really. Has that evaluation been done to fit that requirement? And if the height were capped at some number less than 34.5 feet, would that make you fundamentally change the design? Would the current design accommodate a height under 34.5 feet, I guess is the basic question.
Certainly, I mean, if we needed to reduce the height, we could make accommodations in different parts of the building to, ceiling heights, different things like that, and parapet heights, scale it down slightly if needed. Absolutely.
And it's a flat roof.
I have two areas that are flat and two areas that have a pitch. See a better shot here. This one here. This area here. So we got two flat. I got a flat roof on the most southern end, and then two pitched roofs here, and then a flat roof in the middle.
Okay, so the pitch kind of flows from the front to the back. So the highest point is at the front.
No, sir. It is. It's actually it slopes up to the south. So it's a very slight slope. It slopes from the northern end is the low point, and the high point is in the south. So on both of them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Also, with regard to the front, I guess I share the concerns about the sort of the lack of green space or the lack of yard. Really, the front yard is entirely taken up by the driveways and some other materials impervious to water. And, two of the entrance walkways appear, if I'm reading the elevation correctly, appear to extend into the 15-foot setback in front. So I guess I'd echo Commissioner Cheserson's questions on that. With respect to the section 2781 and the lot area per unit, I understand it's going to be treated as two unit dwellings. So if I'm reading the ordinance correctly, the footnote for a 2-unit building indicates that the minimum lot size is 2,500 per unit, which the way I would interpret that would be, being a 2-unit building, each of them would be 5,000 square feet for each of them. So I guess it's about a 70 by 100 foot lot in total, which is about 3,500 per 2-unit building. So again, that's a similar sort of question to the front yard question. Is I'm not sure if there was a decision was made about that previously. I guess that would be more of a question directed at Ron or Nick.
Well, to address one of the elements, I can't answer all of them, but as far as the projection of the where it's like a porch element with steps to come up, as long as we were informed by the building official that as long as we're not full-blown foundation underneath and outside of that front setback line, we were okay to have that entry piece to project over. Now, if that's a wrong interpretation,
the ordinance allows for 10 feet.
Okay.
Commissioner Bataki, do you have any further questions?
Comments? I think that's it. That's it for now. I'll let
okay.
Go ahead.
I'd like to ask a few questions, and building off of the last comment that Commissioner Bataki made. I also noted that in referencing the schedule Article X, and I think there's, whether it's 2,500 minimum zoning lot size per unit or 3,000, I'm struggling with the math a little bit, because if the lot size is around 7,000 square feet, then that doesn't yield 4 units. So at least is how, in terms of how I'm understanding it. So Mr. Supel, could you clarify how we are supposed to be how we're supposed to understand how the minimum zoning lot size per unit works out in a way to allow for 4 units on the site?
Yeah, you are correct. If you look at Article X and then the footnotes B, C, and M, the unit is considered a multifamily dwelling. And as per Article M, a lot area of not less than 2,250 square feet per dwelling unit may be allowed for multiple family dwellings in a residential D district. So basically, he's falling a little bit short of that, but my intention here is such that, again, we are swapping a non-conforming use on a pre-existing lot. So consequently, he is utilizing the 2 dwelling per lot for a total, again, of 4 lots, and therefore I feel is meeting that criteria.
Okay, so this is something that, in addition to the setback, asking for a variance on the setback, would this be considered something else that the commission would need to take into account in its review?
Yeah, well, that's gonna, again, be up to the commission to decide if it's necessary to go ahead and do that, correct?
Okay, and I just want also clarity that we are, and I think you answered in the affirmative, that we're to assume that this is this is 2 lots, not 1 contiguous lot. And if that's the case,
That
then
is correct. It is,
okay.
It originally was, as you said, 2 lots, and basically it would be a single lot. But in doing so, he actually did some favor to the community, because the ordinance then required him to have a larger setback. So he now is creating more space between his unit and the neighbor to the south side, I believe. So consequently, there's been some give and shove in both directions by Mr. Bailey and his team to create a usable structure on a piece of land that hopefully will, be something that the neighbors and everybody can agree on and enjoy. But ultimately, it falls in the hands of the commission to decide on this.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
As city attorney, I just want to interject real quick. That does not fall on the commission. I'm a little bit confused as to the zoning issues. I think it was presented earlier as 1 lot with 4 dwellings on it, and now it seems like 2 lots. And I do think that throws some different issues into it. And so either we need some clarity on that from the developer, or I think also, well, it's probably a both. We need to look at that maybe a bit differently in terms of what variances are required, because this commission does not look at zoning and variance issues. That's up to the ZBA. So I will admittedly say that I'm a little bit confused now based on what was presented to council and what's being presented now. So if there can be some clarity on that, that's fine. Otherwise, I think we need some more information.
Thank you, Attorney Howlett. I'll move quickly through my last couple questions, and they have to do with the zero lot side yard setback. The roof on unit 4 appears to be pitched towards the lot line to the northern lot line. And if it's a zero setback, that means that the overhang would be encroaching on the bank property. And if so, could you talk about what the assumption is for water drainage and utilities? And then also, how do you maintain and service the northern facade in the event that you need to, given this configuration?
The overhang design, we can make modifications to that and make the adjustments on that, and that was something that's easily rectified. As far as the access across there, there'd have to be agreement with the bank in order to access the property, and the developer, GSR Properties, has already been in communication with the bank regarding access, while we're under construction, et cetera. And I think that would evolve into discussions about maintenance in the future as well. So, and then as far as utilities, we're still in the planning stages right now as far as the design and location of those. Certainly, there's nothing that can be put on the ground or anything on the northern end. We're looking at potentially the southern side behind our living screen and the fencing area. Potentially for condensing units, potentially, and meters, et cetera, that kind of stuff along this southern edge here, as is would be on on a single family lot as well. On a single family home, you'd put it on the side somewhere and kind of try to screen it as best as possible. And here, I think we'd try to do a little bit extra to make sure that it's screened well enough and buffered enough not to bother our neighbors as much.
So just trying to understand the rationale. You got 9 feet. You're assuming that there'll be a variance in place. So you got 9 feet on one side. What is the rationale for needing 0 and not kind of positioning that whole unit, or just positioning that unit that way?
Ultimately, we're trying to be, we know that we're larger than our neighbors, so we're trying to be as accommodating as possible to push as far north as we can to make that work. Ideally, if we could, push off a foot from the northern property line, that'd probably be best, just to give it a little bit of breathing room there. I think, and with that, we'd still be within the prescribed 7.5 feet. I think that would take us down to 8 or whatever. We could, if we were, I guess if this body, I don't know if it'd be up to this body for us, to be amenable to that kind of possibility. But I think the way we read the variance, pending approval here, is that we can go up to 0 feet on the northern end, and it's not a prescribed distance. We could, if we can come south slightly, to be, as long as we're not over that 7.5 foot mark at the southern end. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but we're trying to again, we were trying to make accommodations to make sure that we were far enough away from or as further away from our southern neighbor as possible.
And just to be clear, that is a zoning variance issue that was voted on by the ZBA, and giving them the variance to go that close to the northern border. So that's not an issue in front of the Planning Commission.
But and with all due respect, Attorney, I can appreciate that, but I'm as a practical matter, I think there needs to be some deliberation of about that, and at least communication back to the zoning board and council, I believe that's part of the reason why they wanted to make it a subject to kind of deal with what comes out of our deliberations.
No, I understand that, but this board, this commission cannot deliberate, make decisions, or have an input on the zoning variance. That's strictly by statute up to the ZBA. They approved the variance subject to your approval of what is before the planning commission, which is what you guys are discussing, site plan approval, parking, all those issues. But that particular variance issue is for the ZBA.
Gotcha. Okay, Commissioner Lindsay?
Thank you, Commissioner Goodwin. I do have, I have one main concern, and it does go back to the proposed DPW site plan that we approved back in December. The site plan that we have in front of us tonight does not align with the site plan for our new Public Works building. Most specifically, what Commissioner Chesterton was talking about in terms of that hammerhead turnaround. I don't see enough clearance for emergency vehicles. I don't see enough clearance for the garbage trucks. I don't see enough clearance for a school bus to get down to the end and turn around. So again, if we overlapped the DPW site plan with this site plan, they do not align. And we've already approved the DPW site plan that's moving forward. So there would need to be adjustments made to this site plan to conform with the site plan that we've already approved back in December of 2020. That's my main concern. And again, I would echo what Commissioner Vataki was talking about in terms of height in relation to the surrounding structures, and Commissioner Chesterton had similar questions about the setbacks. And yeah, if you kind of take a look there are walkways protruding in there. It looks like some trees or bits of concrete. It's not really very specific there. So I think that area of the site plan in particular would need some revision. That's my main area of concern, because I don't know how a garbage truck is going to turn around and back in down there, or if there are children at the end that need to go to school, how can a school bus get in and turn around, or emergency vehicles, whether it be our fire ladder, EMTs, etc. So that's more of a statement than a question, but that's my main concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner
Chairman,
Samper?
can I? Real quick?
Yes.
I don't know, is my screen still sharing here? Can y'all see the screen there with a black and white document that has the full hammerhead drawing on it?
Yes, we can see that. Yes.
So the question I would have, and I don't know if this is a city attorney question or what have you, I understand fully, completely what Commissioner Lindsay was delineating. I know that it was approved, but it clearly, even if we weren't developing anything, the hammerhead would impede on sidewalk access and right of way in front of our lot in general, even if we weren't developing it, which is kind of a hindrance that's not anywhere else on the street. So I mean, it would be taking up the entire half of our lot here to accommodate that, and I understand the need for it, and I 100% agree with it. But just as a question, as far as I guess for myself to make a statement as far as on behalf of our development side, a happy medium somewhere, and that's where I did lay in. That's why I mentioned in my presentation, I have been in communication with Stuckey Vitale, the architects for the DPW project, and building official Sioux Paul to kind of, I alerted them to this because I noticed this when I started laying out our site plan up against the DPW project. And so I just wanted to, I show this graphic to show that it's regardless. I understand the need that we have to have something there, a turnaround to accommodate, but it puts a big hindrance on our project in general. Even if we were building a single family home on that lot as it exists, I wouldn't be able to do that as well. So I'm not trying to be contrary, but I'm just trying to say that we're ready and willing to work and get the best solution for the end of the street here that works on both sides and then provides the needed emergency access and vehicle turnaround access that is required and needed. So I just wanted to point that out for that, just as a point of order sort of thing. So,
City Manager.
Chairman Goodwin, this is City Manager Seisland. I just wanted to thank Mr. Bailey and the commission members and Mr. Supel for all of their great discussion and comments tonight. Clearly, I definitely see, and I would suggest that there be a possible need to look at maybe recessing this discussion and looking that the Planning Commission look to maybe table a vote tonight. It's just a simple suggestion. So we, the city, can go back with the developer. They can continue to work with the DPW architect of Stuckey Vitale to further help with some of these questions that have been there. It's just a thought that I had.
I think that's a great suggestion. And what I'd like to do is maybe just divorce the questions about the proposal that the weight on the Weyburn properties from the apparent need to coordinate a little bit more on the right of way, just so that we can get through some of the questions that some of the other commissioners have. I just, I'm not limiting the conversation about that, but I'm just saying I want the other comments to come through and give everybody enough time, if that's okay.
Absolutely, thank you. I just wanted to make a quick point from the city administration, but thank you, Chairman Goodwin.
Yep, I agree. Wanted to turn it over to Commissioner Samper for her questions, comments.
Thank you. I mean, a number of the things that I have concerns about echo what the other commissioners have said, so I'm not going to, go into those again, but I certainly think that we want to, look at it from an activation standpoint, from how we're fitting in with the rest of the community. But I also have a concern when we look at this right up next to the DPW development, and for our residents in the area with the amount of construction we're going to be having potentially happening at the same time. We're already talking about a concern of a ambulance turning around there, never mind when we've got multiple construction vehicles working on two projects back to back. And I really think that needs to be taken into consideration in our overall timeline, both in the city projects and then just developments as a whole. Anything they could pull through right now, if we've already got DPW up in there, they're not going to be able to pull those trucks around. And I don't think that's going to be a very pleasant experience for an extended period of time for the residents that we have, many long-term residents that we have there on that street and in that area. The height also is a concern to me. Again, it's already been addressed, but we're greatly dwarfing the buildings in the area. And I'm not even sure where the closest building of that height would be to that proposed development, at least on the Grosse Pointe side of the area. So I'd like to make sure, to go back and take a look at that as well as we're discussing what our next steps are here. Covers my comments for the evening.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to move on to Commissioner Coletta.
Frankly, everybody did such a great job addressing all the comments and concerns that have jumped out to me after the presentation and doing all the materials. So I'm going to thank all of you for doing my work for me this time. Thanks, everybody. And I look forward to get some clarity on all of these questions.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Hodges.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to thank the development team for choosing Grosse Pointe Park. I'm sure once we get through this, they're going to love us and they're never going to want to leave. And I would just like to reiterate the direction I think our city manager was guiding us, and that it's been my experience that the balance we want to strive for is to be welcoming to good quality investment that's in line with our community values, and to do so in a legally sound fashion. So it makes sense to me that we should take the opportunity to resolve these issues so that we can get this project to the finish line. And by tabling this and bringing it back, I think the other point that I would add to that would be the parking aspect of it. I would urge the administration to really look at that holistically and not saddle the developer with that responsibility. Certainly, they have the obligation for site-specific issues, but the solutions are going to have to be more holistic. And I think we all know that parking's obviously on the table, but I wanted to make sure that that point was made before we reconvene as well. So with that, if you were open to it, I'd be happy to make the motion to table this matter.
Councilmember Hodges, before I do that, did I give every one of the commissioners an opportunity to comment? Again, I'm limited by the formatting of my viewport here. Okay. All right, please proceed with your motion.
I would like to move that the matter before us, which is the Weyburn 4-unit townhouse development, be tabled for future consideration at a follow-up meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and supported. Who seconded?
Amy Chesterton.
All right, thank you, Amy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion passes.
Chairman Goodman. Chairman Goodman, this is Mr. Bailey. I don't want to speak out of turn. Is that, can I ask you a
Yes.
question, please?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
So I guess for as a point of order for our group, just wanted to clarify some of the, I know that right now, and I heard it multiple times, I'm going to do a detailed height study within the neighborhood in order to gain kind of confidence in our structure against what is currently existing on the block. Any other specific sort of directives that you guys are looking for as a group to kind of address the next time we reconvene?
I believe that what I heard was that having some sort of site plan checklist would be helpful to be able to benchmark what's required as part of our zoning ordinance, benchmarked against what you're proposing in a little more detail. That probably make it a little clearer for us.
And I think, I don't mean to speak out of turn, but I think, George, what you can expect is some information from the city based on the minutes of this meeting and plus other concerns that were raised so that you guys can essentially have the checklist in your hands so that when we reconvene and consider it, sort of all the issues are out there on the table.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Chairman Goodwin, I do have a question for, it might actually be for City Attorney Howlett.
Go ahead.
If the, let's say the next incantation of this site development would change the approved site plan for the DPW in terms of talking about that turnaround, how does that impact the DPW site plan? If that, what I'm asking is, are there any scenarios where we as Planning Commission may have to go back and revisit the DPW site plan if there are impacts on the street and on that turnaround in particular?
I'd have to give that some thought. That site plan has been approved. And so I don't think, I'd have to give some thought to how that would be altered or adjusted. I just don't know off the top of my head, but they've been approved. And so, right now that's the site plan in effect. If we wanted to change it, I'm not saying the planning commission couldn't. I would need to give that some thought.
Okay, no, I just know that, DPW is moving full steam ahead and we don't want to slow down that process. So thanks.
That was going to be one of my questions to City Manager Seisland. If you could let us know what stage of development is the DPW building project?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Goodwin. So right now, the city attorney and I are working on preparing documentation that'll go for the vacation of Weyburn, working with the Huntington Bank property owner, and the alley that's between Weyburn and Maryland for that vacation that will go before City Council. We should expect to see some possible fencing going up around the site within the next few weeks here. And so once that happens, then you'll start to see some soil borings that'll take place and some minor construction. However, with the time in regards to steel, it's due to COVID. It's taking more than 16 weeks potentially to even receive that steel. So it definitely, this is not just the DPW, this is all across the nation here, seeing that struggle. So right now you will see some work within the next few weeks. And then obviously before City Council will be that vacation process.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions on this matter? If not, I'd like to move to old business. Is there any old business that needs to come before the commission? Okay, hearing none. I'd like to move to public comment, non-agenda items, and turn that over to the administration.
Thank you, Chairman Goodwin. I do have no written public comments. So I'm going to ask Ms. Leah Smith if we have any spoken public comments and let her administer this. Leah, please go ahead.
Thank you, City Manager Seisland and Chairman Goodwin. I do have one person in the queue, so I'm just going to go ahead and share the 3-minute timer. And the first person is Ron. I'm going to ask you, I see you're already unmuted. If you can just please state your full name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ron Porter and I live on Pemberton Road in Grosse Pointe Park. And I would like to urge the council to expand public access to make more comments and become more informed about the planning process and in particular the master plan. As Councilmember Hodges pointed out, this is one of the most important things going on in the park right now. I would say it's probably the most important thing going on because it's really going to be our roadmap for the next generation, really, of people in the park. And in particular, I think the Planning Commission needs to expand their thinking about the master plan to include some of our public school properties that are in Grosse Pointe Park, in particular, Trombley School. As the commission probably knows, the Grosse Pointe Education Board has agreed to go forth with one more year of early education at Trombley, but seems very reluctant to go past that 1 year. And it seems very likely that Trombley School will no longer be operated by the Board of Education after 2022. Now, I would like nothing more than to see that decision reversed and Trombley School to remain as a elementary school for generations to come. Both my children attended Trombley and they're proudly call themselves Trombley Terriers. But I think that's unlikely. And at the last council meeting, Councilmember Hodges let slip that she and city administration are working with the URIF for plans for Trombley School after it closes. Now, Mayor Denner told her to be quiet, and so she didn't say anything more about that. But what we do know is that Secrecy in the planning process for large parcels of land and rush decision-making by the Planning Commission don't work. We've seen the secret planning decisions with the Art Center, and we've seen the rush decision-making with the garage on Mac. And today we saw a good example of why that rush decision-making doesn't work. So the Planning Commission really needs to put out there in this process that Trombley School is likely closing and seek public input as to what is going to happen with that property. We cannot let the decision be made by the URIF and certain wealthy donors and let the rest of the city be stuck with their decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person in the queue is Amy, so I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. And please restate your name and city of residency for the record. Please go ahead.
Yes, hi, my name is Amy Reno. I'm at 1463 Weyburn. As far as old business, I wanted to thank the Planning Commission as well as what the council did with the DPW lot. There was a lot of input from the residents on this block because of where it was going to be. We were really pleasantly surprised with the amount of attention to detail that property would have, and in relation to not only our homes, but the rest of Mack Avenue. While the parking, issue that you guys are dealing with now, at least there was a safety issue, I thought, that was taken into consideration, as well as council members and whatnot reaching out to the neighborhood. So moving forward, I would like to just encourage the council to continue on that path that they've been in addressing what's really best for the neighborhood. And I wanted to thank you for doing that with the DBW yard, that most of the residents here are thrilled, and we welcome it, and we look forward to the building to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Goodwin and City Manager Seisland, I have no further public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. City Manager Seisland, I did want to acknowledge receipt of the letter that the petitioners on the 1100 block of Maryland sent. That we did receive it. As a body, we have not had any conversation about action, but I did want to acknowledge that we have received it. All right, we are at the bottom of our agenda, and so I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for your time this evening, and thank you to